I'm the tech employer specialist. I mainly focus on Central Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky, but if you have career related questions, you can reach out to me anytime, and I'll either find the person that knows or I'll be able to answer it myself. Really excited for the speakers tonight. They are both from Catalyte, and I will introduce them in a moment. But first, we do have a couple program announcements. Over the next couple weeks, we actually won't have guest speakers because we're on summer break. So that's super nice. So you can pat yourselves on the back for a job well done. If you need a tech event for your career readiness requirement, this counts if you're viewing this live right now. So make sure to fill out the form in your Google Classroom. If you don't, then just enjoy the talk. There will be some resources afterwards, so stay posted to announcements. That's where the recording will also be posted if you need that as well. And it'll also be on our YouTube channel if you have a hard time finding it in Slack. In general, just make sure to keep yourself muted throughout the presentation. It's kind of a lot of content, and so if you have questions, you can ask them in the chat. That'd be great. But at the end, there will be some time for some verbal Q&A, and our presenters will be able to answer your questions. And so our presenters tonight are Arnie Esquivel. He is a principal agile project manager at Catalyte, and Christine Fox, who is an apprentice program manager at Catalyte. And they are really, in a lot of ways, similar to our career coaches here, and help a lot with getting you ready for your job search. And so really, I'm going to turn it over to them.
Okay, well, thank you very much, David. And really a pleasure to come and speak with you guys. As David stated, let me go ahead and I'll just share the presentation. And my partner, Christine, and I are going to go through and talk through some of the things that we work with our apprentices on as they prepare for their careers in technology. So let me just kind of make sure I want to make sure I can do this. Can everyone see my screen okay? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
And then what we'd like to do is, if you have questions, we ask that you hold questions. We have time at the end of the hour for any questions that you may have. We'll also be sharing a copy of this deck with David to share with you all. There's lots of good references in there as well. Okay. So first of all, we are both, as David stated, we're both with Catalyte. Catalyte is a sorry, let me go through the agenda. So I'll share a little bit about who Catalyte is, what we do. And one of the things, as I stated, that we do is we work with folks who are looking to change careers or get into a career in technology. And so we identify, we consequently train, and we develop resources for careers in technology, as well as a variety of other fields that I'll just show you here in a second. And then what we'll do is, once they complete their boot camp or their training, then we help them prepare and ultimately place them in projects in order to attain the project experience. So some of the things that we want to share with you are some of the things that we share with we call them apprentices, and that's around building your resume. We'll go through and talk a little about LinkedIn and some best practices there. And then we'll finish up with networking. So kind of getting you ready for that first interview, getting your resume pulled together, getting your LinkedIn profile all set up, and some tips and tricks on how to network and make the proper connections. So as I stated, we're a tech-enabled company. We're a talent development group. And so what, in many instances, firms come to us, they're looking for talent, particularly they're looking for, talent in either particular locales or particular demographics, things of that nature. What we will do is we help find, consequently develop, and then ultimately put those resources into projects. We have AI-enabled testing that helps us identify resources that have particular strong aptitude towards a career in technology. So just to kind of give you an idea of what that means for many of our apprentices, and in many cases for many of you, before they come to us, or before they launch into a career in technology, they're probably earning about $25,000. We're seeing on average that afterwards they're probably earning about $98,000 in technology careers. 48% of the resources that come through our program never had a degree. 90% of those resources consequently convert to a full-time job with the various companies that we do business with. And interestingly enough, our resources come from a very diverse set of backgrounds. 77% of them never had a career in technology prior to coming. And then in spite of all that, we have very high ratings from our customers who will rate on a scale of 1 to 10, average rating of 8.5 in terms of the skills, in terms of both the soft skills and the hard skills. The other really nice thing is because of our approach, we have access to a much larger network of resources that we can find, which helps clients reach a lot of their diversity goals. So basically, we like to say that, skills and aptitude, or aptitude and capabilities, are equally distributed. Unfortunately, opportunity typically isn't. And so what we are really about is leveling the playing field by helping identify resources with aptitude, training them. So a college degree or a college program isn't as important as having the right attitude, having the right innate abilities to learn, to have a growth mindset, to be resilient, have grit. Those are the kinds of resources that we're looking for. We train in a couple of different areas. Probably the one most interest is in, and this is kind of give you an idea of where a lot of the demand comes from. It's in software development. We have a couple of specializations in cybersecurity and IT services. And then this just gives you an idea of some of our success stories and some of the diverse backgrounds that many of these folks come from. So we've had resources that, for some odd reason, I just noticing we have a lot of pharmacy technicians, but we have college students. One of my favorite stories is, yes, I've literally had Starbucks baristas come through our program. We've had folks who have been in security, construction, any number of different resources that are now having really successful careers in a variety of different companies in both technology as well as digital media. So as I stated, they've gone through the training. Now it's time to get them ready for those interviews, get them ready to get their names out there and in front of our clients. So now what I'd like to do is I'd like to turn it over to Christine, who works with our apprentices to help them get their resume in shape. Like you, a lot of them don't have a lot of technical background to use. So part of the challenge is creating content. I'm going to have Christine walk through some of the challenges and how tips and tricks that she uses to help folks with resumes.
Great. Thank you, Arnie. So first of all, I just want to put it out there. Resumes are not fun. They're not fun to have to create on your own. And so what I found, and even for my own resume, starting with a really good template is going to be very, very helpful. We've also evolved quite a bit in technology where you can use some AI. So we'll talk a little bit about that, how to use that to maybe get that first brush stroke of some of your skills and background down in that. What I want to make sure is everybody is using a template that is very easy for a recruiter to read. You don't want a lot of busyness. You definitely don't want a lot of different fonts. There's a lot of good checklists of things that you want to be paying attention to. In this deck that we'll share with you later, there is a really pretty good free resume builder that you can start with. There's a lot of other ones out there, so I just encourage you to find one that looks good or that feels comfortable for you to work with. Doesn't matter how much experience you have, unless you have like 20 plus years of experience, your resume should just be one page, because the average time a recruiter or a hiring manager looks, actually more, the recruiter looks at a resume is, believe it or not, 6 seconds. So that you have to pop with certain things. And if they have to read through a lot of information, or they look and they see there's pages and pages, it's not important to them, and it's probably not even relevant to the job. So what I want to also stress is that you do not have to put down every single job that you've had. You want to make sure that you are putting information down that is very specific to what is the job that you're going for. And I think we've had this sort of fantasy that I have one resume and I just blanket it all over the place. The reality is you need to have many versions of that resume. You should have a core resume, and then when you're looking at a specific job, you want to be able to go into that job description, make sure that in that job description, you have those words in there somehow supporting the experience that you have. So this is a little example that we did in a one of our listen and learns that we do every other Wednesday at Catalyte. We I worked with one of our apprentices. We pulled up his resume that he had done. We went on to the chat GPT, pulled a job that he would have been somewhat qualified for, but it was a little bit of stretch, and then asked it to repopulate his resume in with what the chat GPT had said. And it made quick work out of getting a nice amount of information in there that was highly relevant. The next most important step when you do use maybe some kind of a AI tool is that you have to comb through and make sure that it is accurately portraying your true experience. Because what we found in that workshop that we did was that it was inflating some of his years of service for some things, because it was looking at the job description and kind of making some assumptions there. So I highly encourage you, if you haven't already played with an AI resource to populate your resume, to try that. But I caution all of you that you have to make sure that it is absolutely the truth of what your experience is, because the last thing you want is to get that interview and then they're asking you about something and you're like, oh, oops, that actually wasn't, I don't really have that much experience, or oh, I haven't really used that technology. Where did that come from? So definitely find ways to make your resume building a little bit easier for you and also a little bit more customized. What you want to do is make sure that you're getting noticed. And that really just means that the resume has to be relevant, easy to read. And then I always encourage people, please just put your LinkedIn profile on your resume. We have a template that we use for all of our apprentices, and they have their LinkedIn profiles. If you have any portfolios, or if you've done any kind of technology and you have a GitHub or some way that you can store some of your information and show off some of your work, rather than list a whole bunch of things on your resume, put a link to what your profile is there. And I will tell you, especially if you're looking at maybe a website you've designed, or if you're in more some graphics or some art or something like that, those pictures are worth 1,000 words. So I would just definitely encourage that you beef up your resume using things like that. So I also want to talk a little bit about as you're building your resume and you don't have a lot of experience, what are you going to do about that? So I'm going to, Arnie, can you switch to the next slide? So here's the thing, get creative. Think about boot camps that you've gone to, any certifications, any unpaid or volunteer work that you've done in the field, something that shows that you really want to be working in this sector. You also want to, as I mentioned before, again, this customization is very important. Tailor your resume to include the transferable skills that are relevant to the field. So here's an example. As Arnie mentioned, we've got people, we have had baristas, we've had people working in the pharmaceutical, we've had warehouse workers, we've had teachers. And I think about in the job that they were looking, that they want to do, software development, what's important in software development? Customer service is really, really important, because you've got to be able to deliver to the client what they need. Active listening is really good. The ability to communicate well, to work well on a team, all of the things that are very important in the field that you are going into, you want to make sure you're incorporating that into the skills that you have. Another cheat that I have is I will pull down a job or a field. Let's say, I pulled junior software developer. What are the skills for a junior software developer? And lo and behold, Google provides me with a whole bunch of different skills. I look at those skills and I find which ones specifically are more of the professional skills, less technical. And then I encourage, when we're doing resumes for our apprentices, let's just start pulling from, highlighting those parts of the jobs that you've had before. And then again, for the technologies, any technology you worked with, even if it is just, if it's Windows, or if it's something that you figure is pretty basic, if you know it, put it down there. I think it's really important for people to know that you have that. As I mentioned, consult the job description to guide you through the content that you want to write, and then the downloading AI to help. And then I always say, even if you've proofread it, get another set of eyes on it, somebody who knows you, and who will take the time to just read it verbatim and make sure that everything makes sense there. And then check your links. I will tell you, it was interesting. I was checking someone's LinkedIn link, and it popped up a different person. And I think what they had done is they had just tried to pull some information from somebody else's resume to help populate theirs, and went a little too far. So that's the one thing. You just want to make sure that it is foolproof by the time that you get it out there. I haven't mentioned anything about cover letters in this, but I do want to make one mention, because I feel like they've fallen out of fashion a little bit. But if there is any way, when you're doing an online application, for you to add a letter that will summarize, I highly encourage you to put something like that in there. And it's a little bit of, it's short, it's sweet, it's an introduction, and it is something that you find, or find a way to put in there why you want to work for that company. It might be, it has always been my dream to be able to work at X company. When I saw that you were opening up positions for more junior level people, I was incredibly excited. Make a reference. I noticed on your whatever page, or your LinkedIn page, your company page, or social media, that this is something that's very important, of value to your company, resonates with me. So in that cover letter, you also want to find a way to make connections to how you feel with that company that you're going for. And I know we're going to save questions for the end, but before I move on, does anybody need clarification on anything that you may forget to ask at the end? Okay. Well, then I'm going to hand it over to Arnie to talk a little bit about the LinkedIn profile. You're muted, Arnie.
Thank you, Christine. So Christine just talked about the resume, and one of the key messages about the resume, right? It's targeted. You want to pick the keywords out of the job description and make sure that the best elements of what you have to offer align with what they're looking for. So that means potentially multiple versions of your resume based upon the different companies or the different positions that you're hoping to land careers with. Your LinkedIn profile is kind of home base. That's your profile. It is your product. In many cases, it's always been explained to me as it's kind of the product. And so we wanted to share with you some tips and tricks about, best practices for your LinkedIn profile. So we'll talk a little bit about why it's important, kind of how to build your profile, and then finish up with networking in LinkedIn and how do you create those connections, which are really important as well. So LinkedIn it's a social media platform at the end of the day. It's the largest professional social media platform in the world. As we stated, right? It is your profile, it is your product that you continue to add to, and it really gives prospective employers the complete picture of who you are and what you have to offer. So you'll see in there's a description about what you do, there's your work history, there's your skills, there's recommendations and endorsements that, what groups are you affiliated with? Are you an active member and contribute to the social community? All that says something about you. It's ultimately your product. So LinkedIn is really important. It's the home page. It's your advertising page that draws prospective employers to you. So we'll start with the header image. It's really important. So you have a couple of things where you can configure. First of all, you can configure your photo, and then you can configure the background that your photo shows up on. It's really nice to be able to customize that. It shows a little bit about your personality. Remember, this is kind of who you are and what you want to communicate. Be careful though that, and it'll give you an opportunity to preview before you share it, but some of the content, or you may actually want some of the things like, you know, the friends in the background maybe to cut out in the picture, but you want to make sure you take a look at that. One of the pieces of advice is this is about you, so you want to restrain from putting your company or company logo on the header page, the header image at this point. Profile photo. So this is something that's really important. Encourage you to add a profile. Don't simply use the gray sort of shaded out mysterious shopper icon that's there. You know, that's kind of frankly a flag, right? People want to see who you are. They want to get a better understanding. So take advantage of the opportunity and post a photo. It should be obviously a professional looking photo. Couple of a good example and a bad example of one of our teammates here. But it really, as you stated, it goes a long way towards humanizing, puts a name to a face. And it, you know, again, doesn't have to be a glamour shot or anything really made up. A candid photo or in a natural in this natural setting, I think are some of the most interesting and some of the most powerful images that I've come across. So the headline. So this is what's going to follow immediately under your name in LinkedIn. And a piece of advice that I got was that roles, you know, there's lots of roles out there. There's lots of titles out there, and titles mean different things to different people. A vice president of a technology company may be very different from a vice president of a bank. Instead of using a title, right, I'm a project manager, talk about the things that you can do or the things that you do. What do you have to offer, right? A skilled professional in technology delivery, you know, capable of solving problems in a fast-paced environment. List things about what you're able to do. Obviously, take advantage of it. Avoid titles. Include capabilities and things that you're able to do. So within this deck that we'll share with you, there are good links to all of these different sections. There's LinkedIn help pages that will give you additional information as well. The about section is where you'll go into a little bit more detail. So the title is going to be short. I think there's a limitation there. So again, you want to put your most important, let's call them skills, or your most important responsibilities, the things that you can do there. You want to use the about section to talk a little bit about, you know, past skills. What are your abilities? What kinds of roles and responsibilities do you have? You know, creating an engaging about section, right? A little bit about your background, what drives you, what passions do you have? Helps kind of create some interest and help share a little bit more about who you are. Experience and education is very important. This is where you're going to add your past jobs and your past experiences. It helps connect what you've done to what it is that you're doing and the kinds of roles that you're particularly interested in. Highlight impacts of your work, so the outcomes, not just the tasks. So don't just include, you know, I did, you know, I was a stockbroker, or I was a salesperson. Talk about the outcomes, talk about the results of the work that you did, your accomplishments. Use this opportunity to include that. This is where you'll also tag your previous employers and be able to pull in logos. And then if you have anything that you can share in terms of, as Christine stated, repos or portfolio of work or previous presentations or analysis that you've done, white papers, this is another area that you can add in this section. Also, you can add information if you have particular training and or any education that you may have had. So skills are really important. These are the kinds of things that when recruiters go in and they do searches on people, they're going to be using those keywords. So if I'm looking for somebody with, Azure Kubernetes services experience, I'm going to be creating that word search. So if you have that skill, if you have skill with, organization or problem solving or C#, you want to identify those skills and list those out. Really important for searching and finding the right candidates. And then once you create those skills, creating endorsements. So, I've worked with this person. I can actually endorse that they are very good at, C#. They've worked with me on a project. They were very good at C#, or, they were exceptionally talented at communicating to the executive team. I'm going to go ahead and endorse them for those skills. So skills are important. Endorsement of those skills by outsiders is also important as well. Okay, so that's a couple of tricks. So you've got your profile, you finally pull it together. Now, what do you do with it? LinkedIn, someone explained to me, has a lot of algorithms. And the goal is that when recruiters are in there looking for people, that you rise sort of to the top of the list of results that they pull back. Part of the secret to doing that is building your network. LinkedIn is going to look for your sphere of influence. What is your sphere of influence? Do you have only a few connections or a lot of connections? Do you contribute to a lot of different areas, or are you not a contributor? Do you belong to groups? How many people, because it's all about networking and it's all about building that web of connections. The more you work on building those connections, the better. Okay. So requesting and accepting connections, there's a debate. The algorithm does look, the larger number of connections that you have, the better. And that's a number that you want to work towards building those. But we encourage you to build those connections organically, right? These are people that you want. If somebody were to ask you, hey, it says that you're friends with David York, I really would love to have can you tell me a little bit about this? This is somebody you're going to want to be able to say, oh yeah, I know David, or David who? I don't know, because I just so happened to catch his name in a presentation and I decided to create a connection with him. And, I can't really speak to them. So what we encourage you to do is, when you build those connections, go ahead, create those, take every opportunity you can. So, your former colleagues, any classmates that you may have had, family, friends, obviously big source, former alumni. These are folks who are willing to make connections. You could also do a search. So for example, say, hey, I'm really interested in a project manager position at Catalyte, or I'm really interested in a project manager position, let's say at 8451. You can do searches for people who work at 8451 with maybe a project manager or a scrum master title, and you can have a list, and now you have a prospective list of people that you can reach out to and say, hey, I'm interested in learning more about your company, or I'm interested in learning more about your career. Could we connect? I would really love to connect and maybe learn a little bit more about you. What's really important is that you not send requests to connect just blindly. We get those, right? Always send a personalized note, and take the opportunity, for example, like today, you can connect with me, you can connect with Christine, but you want to send us a note. Hey, Arnie, thank you for the presentation. I really enjoyed hearing from you. I would love to learn more. It would be really great if we could connect, right? Always include a personalized note whenever you're sending a request to connect with people. And then similarly, you're going to get requests to connect. You always want to be careful, right? You want to be careful of people. This is somebody that, is this somebody that you would be willing to vouch for if somebody reached out to you to connect with them, okay? So another area that's really important is recommendations. So you can either submit a recommendation for somebody, or you can request that somebody submit a recommendation for you. Hey, I've worked with Christine. She and I worked together for 3 years in this capacity. I think and I could talk about all the things that I think Christine is really great about. Hopefully Christine's sent a request to submit a recommendation. Maybe, hey, I'm interested in this particular role. I'm looking for this opportunity, and I'm able to tailor my recommendation specifically to this. But, so you can recommend someone, or connections can recommend you. And then when you request a recommendation, you want to do it following a memorable event. Either it's following a successful project, or you want it to be somebody who really can be able to speak about what you did and submit a recommendation that's going to be believable, essentially, right? And then always make sure that you ask for the recommendation and let them know of what it is that you'd like to do, and that it's going to be in writing. Similarly, right, give recommendations if you feel they're deserved, right? If you can ask, hey, can I submit a recommendation? Or if somebody asks for something and you really don't know them very well, maybe explain why you're hesitant to do so. So some other tips. So you'll see your LinkedIn linked is kind of a long sort of a string with your name in LinkedIn. So you can go ahead and you can customize your URL so that it's simple, right? You can say Arnie Esquivel at LinkedIn, or Arnie Esquivel in LinkedIn, Arnie Esquivel Catalyte LinkedIn. You can go ahead and do that. Really important is for you to become an active member of the community. So take advantage of the posts, read posts, subscribe to companies in various areas that you're interested in, follow certain people. It says put the social in social network. So that's elevating levels of interaction, right? You can like something. You can also maybe include a comment. So for example, Christine just got promoted. I can go in there and she announces it in her LinkedIn profile. I can go ahead and I can like it, but maybe even better, I could say, hey, Christine, I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. Couldn't happen to a more deserving person. And then from there, you can also post information, right? So if you see an article that's interesting or something that you want to share with people, right, it goes from just liking things sort of passive to being more engaged and more in contributory towards what it is that you put out in the community. So then there's other areas on the LinkedIn profile that you can fill in. If you do any kind of volunteering, if there's particular awards that you received, again, this is your brand. This should all be building a story of who you are. So if your about section is about, you're passionate about the environment, or you're passionate about, working with underserved communities, hopefully you have some volunteering positions, or you have some positions that kind of support that and show that, help back it up. This is again, it all contributes to an overall view and a picture of who you are. As mentioned, don't spam other people you don't know with connection requests. Yeah, a lot of people just want to go out there and get those connections really quickly. Don't do that. And one good way to prevent yourself from doing that is always make sure you send a personalized note. It's just a nice touch. I personally don't accept requests unless it includes a personalized note. It tells me that they wanted the connection badly enough that they took the extra effort just to submit a quick note. Hey, saw you or spoke to you. I really enjoyed talking to you. I would really love to connect. Would you accept my invitation to connect? And then finally, once your profile is out there, make sure to keep it current as you get new jobs, as you get advanced in a job, as you learn new skills. You always want to be able to keep it current, perhaps going in there on a quarterly basis and updating it. Okay, so we've got our resume pulled together. We've got our LinkedIn profile pulled together. Now we've got to go out there and actually start sharing it with people. So Christine's going to talk about some of the tips and tricks for how to network.
Thank you, Arnie. It's interesting because networking has changed, I think, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. A lot of the networking you're going to be doing is going to be online. It's going to be through video chats and things like that. Previously, a lot of it was done in person. You know, you'd meet somebody at a conference, you'd reach out to them, you'd see if you could get a little bit of time with them, talk to them about some things. So let me first start off by talking about what is networking and what is it not. And so there's a clear differentiator for me. So when you are networking, please don't go in there with the assumption that you're going to be getting a job out of this, or that you even have any thoughts about getting a job. This is a lot of pre-work to try to get you more information about the field, and again, build resources who could vouch for you, who maybe down the road might reach back to you and say, you know, when we talked about a year ago and you told me about your passion for this, you know, and I've seen you've really done a lot of things in the meantime. I have a position that you might be interested in. Would you like to connect about that? So something like that could potentially happen. But in the moment, you are not asking for a job. You're also not interviewing for a role. What you are doing is you're trying to learn about the industry. The more you know about the industry that you think you have an interest in, the better equipped you're going to be to highlight yourself when you actually do go into an interview. You want to be very respectful of a person's time and their generosity. Keep this session to 30 minutes or less. And I'll talk, after I go through these bullet points, I'll talk a little bit about how you might want to approach that. Before you go and you have that time with them, once they say, sure, I'd be happy to, here's a link to my calendar, go ahead and find a time to put some time in, or better yet, you're downtown, I'm downtown, maybe we can go meet for coffee and talk in person. But please, please, please be very respectful of their time, and just make sure you say, I know we set for 30 minutes. I'm going to really keep us on track, because I do want to make sure that, I'm respecting your time. So you also want to make sure that you have looked at what their company is, because you're going to be doing most of the work for them. And by that, I mean, you're going to have a set of questions that you want to ask them, and you're just going to be absorbing all of the information, taking notes, in fact, if you want to, about what they're going to share. But don't go into one of those sessions just going, hi, so I'm Christine, and thanks for meeting with me. I just want to hear what you have to say. Preface it very specifically with, the reason I really want to talk to you is that I see that you've gone down a path, or I see that, we have a connection in common, or, we lived in the same area or went to the same school or something like that. Find a way to say, and, reached out to you because I'm very interested in learning to be more about an accountant. And I've been doing some research, but seeing that your evolution, you actually made a job change. You used to be in this, now you're into the accounting field. I would love to hear about, your journey. I would love to hear about what prompted you, and then any advice that you may have. So you've got to be very targeted in the questions that you have and what you need. And then when you wrap up that time with them, you thank them and you say, if you think of anyone else in your network that might be good for me to talk to, or that you think would have the time for me to learn a little bit more about, I would sure appreciate that. Would you be willing to share? And I'll follow up again after this meeting, just so that you have my contact information to pass along. You never know. There's like all these different connections. And when you think of networking, I mean, you literally think of, you're this hub in the middle and all these other connections that people are going to have and turn you on to. I have a lot of great stories of people that that had reached out to me when I was in my background is all in human resources. So I've been recruiting, managing all the HR aspects of a company. And when someone would reach out to me and say, I'm fascinated by what your organization is doing. It was a nonprofit, and I would love to learn more about it. Would you have time? Would you be able to talk to me on the phone? And especially if they came very well prepared, great conversation. I would say out of, let's just say, the percentage of people that ended up coming back and me offering them a job maybe 6 months or 1 year later was fairly high, because what happened is in those meetings, I didn't have a job open for them, or they didn't have the experience that was needed to even just get in entry level. Gave some advice, had them talk to a couple other people, maybe referred them to an organization that might be a good place to get their foot in the door with. And then lo and behold, a year later, there was an opening that I had, and I would reach back and say, I don't know where you are right now with your job search or how you've been doing this, how you've been doing, but I have a position now that I think you're a pretty good match for. Do you want to come in? Why don't you send me your resume, and then do you want to come in and do a formal interview? And that was because not only did we have that one meeting and they were very prepared and they impressed me, but we stayed in touch. They would reach out maybe every quarter and say, hey, I just want to let you know, these are some of the things that I did following your advice, or just an update. I actually ended up finding this position, or I'm volunteering in this, area, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without, the conversation that I had with you that led to me being able to meet a couple of other people in the field. So respect those connections, because at some point in time, you're going to be able to give that back to someone else, and you're going to realize how important that is. And so when somebody treats you respectfully that way, I think that just makes you want to go the extra mile for them. And so I said it before, just wrap that up with, the appreciation. Do watch your clock, and even just say, look, I'm gonna be kind of watching my clock just a little bit, just to make sure that we stay on track. But if anything comes up, or you need to take a call or something like that, no worries there. And then, of course, there is, the formal thank you note to them over email is very important. So the only thing that we haven't talked about, and I would be happy to entertain any questions, is that once you get through all these steps that Arnie and I talked about, the best thing that can happen is that you get called in for an interview. And we haven't prepared, some of the things about interviews, and would be happy to come back and maybe talk about that if it's something that's really important for you. But please include that if you've got any questions about, tips for interviewing and things like that too. But there you go. So
we actually do have one question already. It was posted in the Q&A. If you're ready for questions. So it was actually posted by an anonymous user, which is very mysterious. I like it. How much impact does LinkedIn have on a job applicant's chances? Is it beneficial to have an account, even if you're not really active on LinkedIn? They say it sounds like Facebook, but with more work.
So I would say it's very important. You don't have to purchase the premium. All right. The basic free version of LinkedIn it's free. It does require work. It does require some work, but hopefully, you'll get a copy of the deck, and there's a lot of information in LinkedIn in terms of how to fill out and tips and best practices for filling it out. I know I found my position with Catalyte 5 years ago. I had a recruiter went through and did a LinkedIn search for project managers in the Chicago area. So why not? You can't not take advantage of the opportunity to get your name out there. It is a tool used by recruiters to search for and look for prospective candidates. And it's one way for folks to be able to reach out to you. You're going to be doing a lot of reaching out. You're going to be sending out resumes and cover letters. Wouldn't it be nice for somebody to maybe have interest in you and find you for a change? Having a LinkedIn profile this is me, this is my profile, come and find me. A lot of instances, somebody once explained to me, we are often like moths to a flame in career search. How about you being the flame for a change? Having a LinkedIn profile is a first step towards you being the flame for the first time. Okay.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree. If you don't have a LinkedIn, then I think you're just not serious about finding a job out there. And it's a very well respected social media platform. Very, very well respected.
Yeah. One other pro tip I wanted to share with you, I found a book that was extremely beneficial to me about networking. It's actually called, and I have a copy of it, I have it on my Kindle, The 20-Minute Networking Meeting. The professional edition, it's by Nathan Perez, Perez. It's a quick read, but it's a great reference for, the importance of networking and how to set up the networking interview. As Christine stated, it's really about gaining intelligence. It's about making connections and opening doorways. It's not about finding that job. That'll eventually come later. So,
Yeah. And actually, think about, where do you start networking? I kind of mentioned maybe someone in the industry, or you do a LinkedIn search, but think back. I mean, if a friend of yours parent is in the field, you could always just reach back and go and say, can I talk to you about this? Now that I'm all grown up and professional and doing this, I would love to talk a little bit more about that field. Think also back, you can reconnect with different, maybe high school teacher that you had, saying, hey, I know, I was always really good in English and I'm trying to break into this career path in this field. I know, would you endorse me? Would you talk about anything there? Do you have any resources in your community or your network community that you think would be good for me to learn more about? What are the prospects of copy editing, or, reporting, or something like that? So think about, just get creative here and mention to your friends, let people know, when you're checking in with people, just say, hey, I'm actually trying to embark on a little bit of a career change and looking to get into this field. If you know of anybody who's done something similar, let me know.
okay. Yep. Thank you for sharing that. That's the book.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Look up.
and
Go ahead, David.
sorry, really fast. We actually have that in our program resources for free, so I'll post that whenever we
Awesome.
post the recording. So continue. Sorry, Arnie.
Sure, no problems. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is you probably have networking groups in your local area, right? These are groups that get together, and there's various folks who kind of have a common purpose. They're all looking for opportunities. They're looking to connect with people in different industries or different companies. Take advantage of those. That's a great area to start making some connections.
Yeah, those meetups. The other thing is looking at Toastmasters. I don't know if anyone is familiar with what that organization does, but especially if you need to get more comfortable with speaking in front of other people, and that could be an audience, a big audience, it could be a one-on-one. I would highly recommend that you find a local group there to start doing some practicing. And again, you're going to find professionals there, and you just never know who you're going to meet.
I would also endorse Toastmasters. It's very good. Are there any other questions or comments?
Well, I'll just make one. I know that, in the career search can be really, really daunting. And I would just encourage you, give yourself a little bit of grace and know that it is going to take a lot of work, but the end can really, really pay off by doing your homework and being prepared, because you would be surprised how many people don't don't have the professionalism in this approach. And anything you can do to set yourself above and rise to the top is going to be so beneficial for you.
Okay. We appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you. Hopefully you guys learned a few things. And if there aren't no other questions, we really enjoyed talking with you.
We do have actually a couple.
Oh, great.
One was, will the PowerPoint be made available to us after the presentation? Notice some hyperlinks that he would like to check out. Those from Blake. So that was the first question.
Yeah.
And I'll also post, say, the free book and a few other things along with that. and Tabi, it was a Toastmasters. You know, like making a toast at a wedding. And then Ryan Hines asked, would you recommend doing an apprenticeship with Catalyte after Code Kentucky? It depends on who you're asking, whether it's Catalyte or myself. And so on my end, I think it's up to you. I would definitely do your research afterward and see what you think is best for you. But that being said, getting extra information can never hurt.
Yeah, you would. There's kind of three major steps that you would have to take. The first is go out, as David stated, go out to our site, look us up, learn more about the program. If you're interested, we have you take a test, an online survey. It's pretty lengthy. It's pretty intensive. But you have to get through that survey because that's where, again, we're evaluating and assessing aptitude and things of that nature. When you go out there, and then consequently, if you if you test well, your results are good, you will be invited to join a cohort. So you will have to go through a boot camp that's sometimes, depending upon what you're going, you know, what area you're interested in, those boot camps can be as many as 5 months in duration. And a lot of that, you're receiving a stipend, but it's a very small stipend. But it is a full-time commitment for you to go through the boot camp. And then after that, we ask that, you know, we'll put folks in actual projects so they're able to earn the experience on project teams. And that's also a commitment that so that you can get that experience. So so again, as David stated, what's right for you. But our first piece of advice is go out and learn more about Catalyte.
Yeah, and the assessment test has been reduced to the time frame. It's not nearly as long. I think it used to be 2 hours. And I know they were going to take out some of the math problems in there. I think they have to. So that's made it a little bit easier for people not to feel so daunted by some things. Because honestly, who remembers high school calculus? And it really doesn't matter. I just like, Matt, since code, you end with a capstone, what advice would the guests and how to highlight a project on a resume or otherwise such that the potential employers will take a look at it? It depends. If it's like, we don't let people, they have a capstone final project at Catalyte. We don't want that out there because that is actually the final exam too. So having that out on people's GitHubs is not something that we will allow them to do because it's proprietary. But if yours is something that it is easily captured in a profile, absolutely. Because as I mentioned, a picture is worth 1,000 words, or something that you can do to describe and reference that. I would absolutely do that because those capstones are not simple to get through. You should be proud of what you've been able to do. Anything else? Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks.
I believe that may be, that may be all the questions and things we have. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us. Really appreciate it. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.